Hi, I'm David Boris, and I have the pleasure to lead our ServiceNow team that serves the VA and the Defense Health Agency. ServiceNow is quite honored to sponsor this Business of VA webcast, especially because of our team and our company's commitment to improving the lives of veterans and the personnel who support them. ServiceNow is an enterprise cloud platform created to digitally transform any business. We connect disparate applications with a system of workflow engagement for the user. We help IT serve the business, we help employees have better experiences with their IT at work, and we help customers have a frictionless service. I'm pleased to be joined by our lead executive on our VA team and a decorated veteran himself, Jetta Deloria.
Thank you, David. What gets me excited every day is to know that ServiceNow is helping the VA save money on their software spend by better managing their assets, and that we are making work more seamless for the employees of the VA as they serve the community. We hope you enjoy this interview with Jack Galvin.
Welcome to today's broadcast. We are pleased to be joined by Mr. Jack Galvin, Executive Director of End User Services at the Office of Information and Technology in the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm Bill James, President of Federal Business LLC, and it's our privilege today to be joined by Mr. Galvin. And thank you, Jack, for joining us, and welcome to our broadcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
Very
the
welcome.
opportunity.
So please give me just a few points about your background and how you came to the VA and where you work now and what are you doing?
Sure. So I started with the VA about 34 years ago, Bill, and as a biomedical engineer. I started my career in Boston, and then I spent about 14 years at the Providence VA Medical Center, in various different forms of leadership, but mostly my whole career has been dedicated to use of technology in delivery of services to veterans. And today I'm actually, as you mentioned, the Executive Director of End User Services across the enterprise.
Wow. We're here in Albany today, videotaping this interview. Give me a little flavor of what is here in Albany at the medical center or other VA services.
Absolutely, certainly. We have a wonderful general medical and surgery medical center in Albany. It also services 22 counties across not only New York, but also in Western Massachusetts and in Vermont. We have an area manager in OINT that provides the IT services here, and it's a very similar model across the country. We have 140 area managers. In Albany, we also support the National Cemetery in Saratoga, and they have some great leadership here in Albany. I know that my 91-year-old dad, who's an Army veteran, is still being serviced by Albany. They've done a great job for them. We met with the leadership in Albany last week. They're such a wonderful team. They take great care of our veterans.
That's fantastic. You mentioned the enormity of the VA mission. I mean, from Alaska to Puerto Rico, Maine to Philippines, that's a huge enterprise. And your role in end user services really is a critical role in helping each individual end user have a good experience with the IT. So just tell me how you manage this enormous enterprise. What's a day in the life of Jack Galvin like?
Sure. Well, first of all, I have a lot of help, right? We have a lot of great staff. The best part of our job is the wonderful people that are in OINT that are very talented across all the spectrum. In our role in end user services, we represent that end user experience, right? It's where the customer consumes the technology to serve the veteran. And as we know, IT technology permeates everything. It isn't just about the technical end of IT, medical equipment, special purposes systems. All things are connected to the network these days. And that interface, that experience is at the keyboard, right? We're also finding that it's not only at those locations you mentioned across the United States, it's also in the home now, right? If anything the pandemic taught us was that proliferation of any time, any place for anyone, we need to provide the technology they need to provide services to our veterans, and that's really what our job is. We're kind of the ombudsman of all of the different departments in OIT as they roll out new technologies for those who serve the veteran to use. They will use that generally through our interfaces. My responsibility extends not only to the end user provisioning and access, but also to the endpoint itself and the management of that technology, to make sure it's efficient and it's useful.
Yeah, amen. I remember thinking back about my time at VA And I think one of the things that I wish I had done better was really understood the role of an area manager. It's easy to, in VA headquarters, not to really think about what's happening at the very other end of the wire, so to speak. Can you just give me a snippet about what an area manager does?
Sure. It is a very challenging job. It is pretty much the only part of OINT that is physically located with the customer, right? They meet with the executive leadership of our business partnership. If we find out what types of technologies they need to deploy. Adds, moves, and changes happen all the time in that environment, very dynamic. We provide activation services, which is basically expansion of space, new programs, new staff coming all the time to provide services. Their job is very dynamic, and that job also helps facilitate the modernization efforts of other things. As an example, we have quite a big modernization going on right now with our electronic medical record. We've done 3 of our hospitals so far. We have 2 more coming this month. And that role of site preparation, in partnership with our other leadership in OINT, is done right there, preparing the site for readiness for, lighting up the new electronic medical record. A day in the life for me, I'll tell you how it starts every day, Bill. Every day, about 8 a.m. Eastern Time, we go over what I call the overnights. And these are what might be disrupted, what services might be down. Across that enterprise, as you mentioned, it's pretty large. Some things will be down. We show our accountability every day right there. We're joined by our CIO who leads that call. We make sure that we are responsible and accountable for the resiliency of the systems that people depend upon. We do root cause analysis. We really hold ourselves accountable to what we're calling engineering excellence, right? We owe it that this technology needs to work and be available for those who serve the veteran. Think about it, and I'll give you a good example. The Veteran Crisis Line, right? It's such a great service that is offered to our veterans in crisis. The magnitude of one call not being handled is really heavy on our concern. So that's the commitment we have. Every morning, 8 a.m., that's how our day starts. Now, any given day, I could be involved in helping a new technology be deployed, even going over the security challenges that may be presented for things like medical equipment or what we call the Internet of Things, right? Refrigeration systems are on the internet, police cameras, all things.
Sure.
So these present various challenges. I might be involved in those types of things. And of course, technical debt. That's something that I refer to as the common core technology. The endpoint devices, the network systems, the basics of what everybody depends upon. You don't want that to be aged. Old things break more often, right? We want to make sure we're on top of that, and we've made a real commitment to make sure that we're ready continuously in all of those key facets of the common core technology. So we're ready for any modernization. It could be the electronic medical record. It could be a financial system we're modernizing. All of it will depend on certain core things: storage, server, endpoint. And if we're conscious about the viability of that and making sure that it's not end of life, then we're going to speed the delivery of that modernization. And that's really what our commitment to that is.
You used to have a saying that I loved, which was, I think, no consumption without consequence. In other words, everything's just not free, right? In which there is a technical debt that gets built over time if you don't continue the refresh. Do you have any thoughts on that, and how are you able to keep up with that refresh challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. Yeah, basically that is to ensure that we are providing the capacity needed when it's needed. Heretofore, often we would buy and grow into what we bought. That's not really an efficient use of services and resources. Now, with cloud expansion, what we've learned is it's so important to be agile, to be able to scale, and to be able to scale in close proximity to the utilization needed, right? Not to overestimate, not to underutilize. So that consequence and consumption is tied together now with great tools of visibility that we have to make sure that we're efficient with the taxpayers' dollars, but also for those who need it, it's available and provisioned for them. So, I think, that commitment also rides on us making sure we have modern, common core technology delivery. And that includes our bandwidth, that includes our network infrastructure, our wireless, and being able to respond to new modes of access. The pandemic also taught us that remote and mobility is a premium, right? This is something that is a norm now. We don't believe that we'll be returning back to a pre-pandemic state. We'll be pretty much in this new norm where a large portion of our care and care delivery is done remotely. Again, anytime, any place, anywhere, we need to have that technology dependable and available.
Telehealth is a big thing, and it exploded during the COVID dynamic, and I think it's, as you mentioned, it's here to stay. But it's not not just telehealth in a doctor providing a video session with the patient. It's also telemonitoring, right? And so maybe it's hands off, and you're getting telemetry, if you will, from a patient who needs to constantly be monitored. So it's critical that these systems be up all the time, because you don't know when that technology is going to be consumed, right?
That's right.
One other question, we talked a little bit about the area managers and the people, but this can't happen without tools, right? So you have tools you use to manage tools, computers managing computers. Do you have any, I don't really care to talk about any brand names or anything, but just the role of automation in your day?
Now, great question, and you're spot on. Our visibility into the proper functioning and the capacity delivery of technology has increased, by a multitude of factors, including the tools and visibility that we've deployed. What we're able to do with that is be proactive and be able to respond before there's an end user experience of either a slowness or a downtime. We call it near misses. We try to preemptively and proactively get in and make sure that if there's an indicator of stress with these tools that we have and monitors, that we're able to intervene before the end user has to make the call and tell us that, hey, this isn't working. And again, so important, right, for business continuity. Our focus, as I mentioned at the 8 a.m. morning call, is resiliency. Is the systems available, dependable for our end user community? And we use those tools to make sure that the indicators of health are there for us. There are various levels of monitoring that we've invested in. I think also in the future that's where we're going to go more and more with the data that we get from that, being able to respond proactively for even things like provisioning new capacity, or perhaps looking at practice patterns of consumption and moving that in the right direction, plus or minus what's necessary, not only for efficiency but for load balance to make sure that across the United States services are rendered in an efficient way.
What happens in a day of the life of Jack when there are natural disasters? I know that these are external events that are not under our control, hurricanes, forest fires, things that really disrupt the operation. And sometimes they are man-made. A backhoe digs up a bunch of fiber. How does your organization react in those scenarios, those situations?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's well practiced. We do cover the entire, like you mentioned, the United States and some OCONUS operations, and there is quite a bit of, it happens out there where we have to respond, and my group also does emergency preparedness. We are involved in deployment of technology and people to help support that disaster, whether it be something like alternate technology for connectivity and enhanced wireless, VSAT, low Earth orbit. We've tested all of those. We have equipment, a menu of services that we can deploy for various needs. We even get involved in the mobile, clinic support, and even have tested and deployed, portable ICU units. Again, everything depends on IT. I mean, we have an awesome responsibility now. When a user comes in the morning to serve a veteran, probably the first thing they do is sign on to the computer, and the last thing they do is sign off.
Right.
That's an awesome responsibility to make sure it works. And during a disaster, you need to bring in alternate folks, even some folks from outside the zone of impact, so that they can help and support. That's where telehealth can come in as well, for instance. So making sure those work with the menus of services we have. We are very much integrated in the VA's emergency response system, and IT is a pivotal partner in that.
So add a little more depth there. So let's say there is a hurricane and you know it's coming. The forecasters tell you it's just going to come up this path. You know the medical centers that might be in the way of that hurricane. What are some of the things that your organization does to prepare for that?
Sure.
Do you deploy assets into that area and stage them, get ready to go? What do you do?
Yeah, great question. First and foremost, it's accountability of people and the employees to make sure we know they're safe. We also build, staff lists so that we can make sure that, if you're in the impact zone, you're probably more worried about your, rightly so, your family, your concerns, your safety and health. So we have others that can help in that respect. We might pre-deploy alternate, wireless technology for connection. We have these VSATs units, and they're very small aperture, telecommunications support from a satellite standpoint. Those take deployment sometimes ahead of time, sometimes after the fact. But a lot of that happens pre-planning. We have, again, a pretty well-oiled machine with it. We're entering hurricane season again. We do great modeling also with projections of what might happen. And folks are continually improving their response as well. We do sort of after-action reviews. How well did it work? Did the communications work well? But they're very practiced, as you mentioned, California wildfires, whether it's an earthquake, tornadoes, hurricanes, and as you mentioned, man-made disasters like, if some, as you mentioned, a fiber cut or some kind of a large disruption in service. We're very much, practiced with it and very good at it.
Oh, thank you, Jack. We're going to take a break here right now and have a message from our sponsor.
Our world is amazing. There are people and technology working to solve our greatest problems. And who helps them do it? Who makes the work they have to do better so they can get on with the work they want to do? Who? When innovation works, the world works. When collaboration works, the world works. When creativity works, the world works. The world works with ServiceNow.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here today with Mr. Jack Galvin from the Department of Veterans Affairs. And we're going to continue with our interview now and have some more questions about what the future holds. So Jack, give me a few thoughts of yours about what you think is coming down the pipe with technology, new challenges, focus areas that would be interesting for our audience to learn about.
Sure, yeah. We talked earlier about the proliferation of telemetry and monitoring and the enormous amount of data that's coming in now with the tools that we have. And I see us using those much more proactively to intervene, not only automatic provisioning, but also, how do you serve the veteran with automation? We've got robotic process automation that we're starting on. This helps with, form filling and some robotic analytics for decision making, advanced decision making. And we find that even in the IT area where we can use that to our advantage, looking at, are there points of friction, for instance, where it's hard to consume IT services? How do we make that easier for folks who need it? Self-service, automation, those types of things. I also see the challenge, we talked a little bit about security, the challenge of connecting everything to the network. Some designed more for function than security, right? There is, a new architecture that we're following, zero trust architecture. Basically, what that refers to is never trust, always verify, right? So that means that, we want to make sure that even if something is exploited, it's very difficult to take advantage of that because you're continually challenged in our system. And once you get that down right, you can really actually have more access because it's safer, right? You can have web browsers allow you to access what you need safely and securely. So I see us making progress in zero trust architecture.
Now let me ask you a question about that. That supports the President's executive order on cybersecurity, wouldn't you agree?
That's correct, yep.
And so zero trust architecture, What's different about that than what you would have done in the past? I heard you talk a little bit about the, the challenge, or at least the verify. So, if you were to summarize zero trust now versus the way we were doing things before, what are some of the essential differences?
Yeah, I think it augments and is complementary to what we've done before. Before is probably more referred to as defense in depth, right? So you have a lot of things. I kind of liken it like going to the mall into an escape room, right? You can't solve one puzzle and get out of the room, right? You've got to do many things to basically solve, and then you won, if you will. You get to escape. To basically exploit a vulnerability, there's many things that you would have to do to actually get something that could be damaging, to the data, to the reputation of the organization. With zero trust architecture, what that does is, assuming someone is in already, what can they do with that? And if you make it difficult internally, you think about it, east to west travel inside makes it very difficult if you're always continually rechecking. And that's what that's going to do. So it augments. The defense in depth is still a very good strategy that we'll still augment and continue to use, but across many different domains, devices, applications, the network itself, all of those will have the ability to introduce augmented security checks, microsegmentation, so that even if that was exploited, this is all you can do with that information and that access.
Does that extend even to medical devices and even like cooling and heating systems and operational systems in a building?
It does. I think sometimes they refer to that as OT, or operational technology. As I mentioned, everything is connected to elevator systems, environmental controls, police cameras, refrigeration, temperature tracking, all of which are connected to the network and represent a exploitation point. So yes, it absolutely encompasses that. So anything connected to the network needs to be, subjected to the same level of enhanced security.
Right. This is a massive organization and enterprise. How are you able to scale? I mean, and be agile while you're doing that?
Yeah. Well, anything that I thought that one of the most important things the pandemic taught us was, even though we were on a path for modernization anyway, what it did was it really accentuated the need to be able to scale quickly. We did that with our telehealth platform, for instance. So leveraging the cloud technologies that we have, leveraging expandable services so that you can increase capacity where necessary, ratchet back down if not. That's where it became very, very apparent and prevalent that we needed to be able to scale quickly. And that's where I mentioned with the Common Core technology, that expansion of bandwidth. We're able to do things like software-defined networks now. Our cloud expansion in our major cloud service providers is readily available for us for compute power. So yeah, I think that's a key enabler for any business, and certainly, as we found out with the pandemic, we are on our way now. I'll give you an example in remote users, right? Pre-pandemic, we were pretty robust with remote users, probably about 40 to 50,000 remote users on a given day. Today, that number could be upwards of 120 to 140,000. And that's fairly steady. That's the way services are rendered, as I mentioned, with remote and mobility. So we have to be ready for that and to be able to expand to that. So we have the capacity now. We're able to do that. We have a big dependency on our vendor community, right, for vendor partners. And it's so important. It's kind of I'd say it's a global IT community, right? So as dedicated as we are to our resiliency for our IT technology, we need partners that are as well, right? That accountability for business continuity is so key.
Yeah, it's total force. It's not just the government, civilians, it's also the contractor support staff. We interviewed LaWanda Jones a few weeks back, and she noted that if you just count PIV cards, that there are in fact generally more contractor PIV cards on a given day than there are government PIV cards. So I really not interested in the number, but I am interested in this joint force, a total force where they're working together to benefit veteran services. And that brings me to my next question. What are some of the key challenges that you see coming up over the next 5 years, if you were to look into your crystal ball?
Sure. Well, I mentioned a few, the security piece, because, you have to be able to use the technology. Security has to be balanced with the business, right? And so that's always going to be a challenge. I think the mobility is going to be a challenge as well, to make sure, again, that we can meet that vision of being able to be anytime, any place, anywhere, independent of what administration you're working in. You need to have the same experience you do if you're at work or at home or anywhere or on the fly, on the mobile on a mobile device. So, I think that's going to be our biggest challenge, one of those. And again, I mentioned our vendor partnership. I think ensuring that we're now doing electronic medical record is a good example. We have partners not only with the vendor, but we also have partners with our Department of Defense partners. And there's technology in a joint ecosystem that we're all responsible for one thing, and that's the end user's experience with that technology. So having accountability across that, having good visibility, understanding how it's supposed to operate, and being able to intervene if it doesn't, prior to, say, an impact to the business, experiencing that themselves.
Final question, Jack. How does end user services enhance the veteran experience and veteran outcomes?
I mentioned before, it's an awesome responsibility. When I was a biomedical engineer, when I first came into the VA, I knew that my customer subset, if you will, was those who leveraged medical equipment to service the veteran. When I became in IT, in the IT world around 2000, everybody became my customer, right? And it, you partner with your partnership with the business, and you understand what they do each and every day to serve veterans and how much they depend on that technology. To me, if we get a chance to make sure that that's dependable, that they can rely on it, and it does, augment and create less friction in delivering services to a veteran, then that's what that's what we got in this for, and we put a smile on the veteran's face. That's kind of what that's really what it's all about, and it is inevitably going to involve technology to do so.
Right, that's part and parcel of the President's executive order on customer experience. I mean, you are delivering that through your technology, the people and the processes that are well rehearsed, as you described, to help our veterans and those who serve veterans. So thank you very much for being with us today and for sharing your thoughts. And I think that everyone learned a lot from this discussion. So thanks very much for joining us, Jack.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for having me, Bill.
You're very welcome.
On behalf of ServiceNow and our federal team, it's been an honor to support this webcast. ServiceNow is committed to digitally transforming the VA to best meet the needs of over 9 million veterans and the employees and contractors, doctors, nurses, clinicians, and all of the support staff who service them.
David, in our personal lives, we have great experiences with applications. We're aligned with the CIO's desire for delightful end-user experiences and employee experiences at the VA to provide products and services users love. For more information, please visit our website at your.servicenow.com/fedhealth.